The plasma blade hummed inches from her throat, its violet edge casting shadows across the Empress's face. Captain Alara Valen didn't flinch. She couldn't. Not when the scar hidden beneath her uniform held a secret that could shatter empires, end wars, or condemn her to execution. The Empress's golden eyes narrowed, her finger hovering over the activation stud that would end Ilara's life in a heartbeat. But then, something impossible happened. The blade lowered, and the most powerful being in the galaxy whispered a single word that changed everything. You. The throne room of the Celestial Dominion stretched like a cathedral of stars. Crystalline pillars rose toward a ceiling that displayed the swirling cosmos in real time, nebulas shifting in silent grandeur. Ilara stood in the center of the obsidian floor, her wrists bound in energy shackles that pulsed with a soft blue glow. Around her, 100 armored sentinels stood motionless, their weapons trained on her slender frame. She was an elf. Not the delicate forest-dwelling kind from ancient Earth legends, but something far more resilient. Her kind had survived the collapse of 3 star systems, adapted to breathe thin atmosphere, and evolved to withstand radiation that would kill most humans within hours. Her silver hair fell in a tight braid down her back, and her violet eyes, a rare genetic marker among her people, reflected the light of distant stars above. Behind her, chained in massive containment fields, were her dragons, Cyrax and Emberwing. They were not the fire-breathing beasts of mythology. These were creatures of the void, born in the heart of a dying star and bonded to Ilara since she was a child. Cyrax, the larger of the two, had scales that shimmered like liquid mercury, his wings folded tight against his serpentine body. Emberwing, smaller but fiercer, glowed with an inner heat, her crimson eyes fixed on the Empress with barely contained fury. Both dragons strained against their restraints, low growls rumbling through the chamber. Ilara kept her breathing steady. She had known this moment would come. The Dominion had been hunting her for months, ever since she and her dragons had destroyed a slaver convoy near the Outer Rim. She had freed over 3,000 prisoners, most of them children. The Dominion didn't care about justice. They cared about control. And she had disrupted their carefully maintained order. The Empress Keltharian rose from her throne, a figure of terrifying beauty. She was tall, nearly 7 feet, with skin that gleamed like polished bronze. Her hair was a cascade of white flame, moving as though stirred by an unseen wind. She wore armor forged from starlight itself, each piece humming with ancient power. In her right hand, she held the plasma blade, a weapon said to have been wielded by the first rulers of the Dominion, capable of cutting through any known substance. Captain Alara Valen, the Empress said, her voice resonating through the chamber like a hymn. You stand accused of treason, destruction of Dominion property, and the unlawful liberation of indentured servants. Do you deny these charges? Ilara lifted her chin. I freed slaves. If that's treason in your empire, then I'm guilty. A murmur rippled through the sentinels. No one spoke to the Empress with such defiance. Not unless they wanted to die. The Empress descended the steps of her throne, each footfall echoing like a drumbeat. She stopped directly in front of Ilara, towering over her. The plasma blade ignited with a sharp hiss, its violet glow illuminating both their faces. You are bold, the Empress said softly. But boldness without wisdom is just arrogance. And arrogance is fatal. Ilara met her gaze without fear. Then kill me. But you'll never stop what I started. There are others like me. Hundreds, thousands. We won't let you enslave the galaxy. The Empress tilted her head, studying Ilara as though she were a puzzle. You believe you're a hero. How quaint. She raised the plasma blade higher, positioning it just beneath Ilara's jaw. The heat radiating from the weapon made Ilara's skin prickle. Behind her, Cyrax roared, the sound shaking the walls. Emberwing shrieked, flames flickering between her teeth. Your pets care for you, the Empress observed. That is rare. Most creatures of the void are loyal only to power. They're not pets, Elara said through gritted teeth. They're family. The Empress smiled, but it was a cold, predatory expression. Family, how? Human of you. She leaned closer, the blade now pressing lightly against Elara's throat. Elara could feel the energy burning against her skin, could smell the ozone in the air. One wrong move, one flicker of the Empress's finger, and her head would be severed from her body. But Elara didn't look away. The Empress's golden eyes searched hers, looking for fear, for weakness. And then something shifted. The Empress's gaze dropped, just for a moment, to the collar of Elara's uniform. The fabric had torn slightly during her capture, revealing a sliver of skin dot, and there, just above her collarbone, was a scar dot. It was old, faded, a jagged line that curved like a crescent moon, burned into her flesh by something far hotter than fire. Most people wouldn't have noticed it, but the Empress did. Her expression changed. The cold confidence drained from her face, replaced by something Elara couldn't identify. Shock? Recognition? Horror. The plasma blade lowered. The Empress took a step back, her hand trembling. No, she whispered. It can't be. Elara's heart pounded. What are you talking about? The Empress stared at the scar, her lips parting as though she wanted to speak, but couldn't find the words. Around them, the sentinels shifted uneasily, confused by their leader's sudden hesitation. Where did you get that scar? The Empress demanded, her voice no longer commanding but desperate. Elara hesitated. She had never told anyone the truth about the scar, not even her closest allies. It was a mark from a life she had tried to forget, a past she had buried beneath years of war and survival. But now, standing before the most powerful being in the galaxy, she realized that the scar was not just a reminder of pain, that it was a key dot, and the Empress knew exactly what door it opened. The silence in the throne room was suffocating. Every sentinel, every courtier, every breathing soul in that vast chamber held their breath, waiting for the Empress to speak. But Caltharion said nothing. She simply stared at Elara's scar, her golden eyes wide with an emotion that looked dangerously close to grief. Elara's mind raced. She had prepared herself for execution, for torture, even for imprisonment in the deepest dungeons of the Dominion. But this, the Empress looking at her as though she had seen a ghost? This was something she couldn't have anticipated. I asked you a question, the Empress said, her voice sharper now, cutting through the silence like a knife. Where did you get that scar? Elara swallowed hard. The energy shackles around her wrists tightened automatically, responding to her rising heart rate. Behind her, Cyrax growled low, sensing her distress. Emberwing's eyes flared brighter, small wisps of smoke curling from her nostrils. It's old, Elara said carefully. From before I became a captain. Before I even knew what the Dominion was. That tells me nothing, the Empress snapped. She took another step closer, her hand reaching out as though to touch the scar, then stopping just short. Who gave it to you? When? Where? Elara's jaw clenched. The memories she had spent years suppressing began to claw their way to the surface. Flames, screaming, the smell of burning wood and flesh. A child's desperate cry in the darkness. I don't owe you answers, Elara said, her voice trembling despite her best efforts to remain steady. The Empress's expression hardened. You will answer me, or I will tear the truth from your mind myself. It wasn't an empty threat. The Empress was a telepath, one of the most powerful in existence. If she wanted to invade Elara's thoughts, there was little Elara could do to stop her. But something held the Empress back. Some invisible line she was unwilling to cross. Not yet anyway. Elara took a shaky breath. If she was going to die today, she would die with the truth on her lips. No more running. No more hiding. I was 7 years old, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. My village was attacked. Raiders from the Obsidian Pact. They burned everything. My parents, my siblings, everyone I knew was killed or taken. I tried to fight back with a piece of broken metal, but one of the raiders grabbed me. He pressed a heated brand against my skin, said it would mark me as property. The Empress's face had gone pale, her breath coming in shallow gasps. But before he could finish, Ilara continued, something happened. The sky above us tore open. Not metaphorically, literally. A rift in space, glowing with colors I'd never seen before. And from that rift came... Her, the Empress repeated, her voice hollow. Ilara nodded. A woman. She wore armor made of light. Her hair was white fire. She moved faster than my eyes could follow. In seconds, every raider was dead. She picked me up, held me close, and told me I would never be hurt again. Then she did something I didn't understand at the time. She touched my scar, and it stopped burning. The pain vanished, but the mark remained. Tears glistened in the Empress's eyes. She pressed a hand to her mouth, as though trying to hold back a sob. She took me to a safe place, Ilara said. A hidden sanctuary on the edge of known space. There were others there, children like me. She said we would be trained, that we would become strong enough to protect ourselves and others. I stayed there for 5 years. She was kind. Fierce, but kind. She taught me to fight, to fly, to survive. And when I was ready, she gave me Cyrax and Emberwing. She said they would be my companions, my protectors. The Empress's hand dropped to her side, the plasma blade slipping from her fingers and clattering to the floor. The sound echoed through the chamber like a thunderclap. Sentinels shifted nervously, unsure whether to act. Then one day, Ilara continued, her voice cracking. She was gone. No explanation. No goodbye. Just gone. I searched for her for years. I asked everyone I met if they had seen a woman with white fire for hair. But no one knew anything. It was like she had never existed. The Empress staggered backward, her legs buckling. 2 sentinels rushed forward to steady her, but she waved them away, sinking onto the steps of her throne. She looked smaller now, less like a god and more like a woman carrying an unbearable weight. I remember, the Empress whispered. I remember you. Ilara's breath caught in her throat. What? The Empress looked up at her, tears streaming down her bronze cheeks. Your name wasn't Ilara then. It was something else. Something softer. You were so small, so fragile. You clung to me like I was the only solid thing in the universe. I promised you that you would never be hurt again. And I meant it. Ilara's world tilted. You're her? The woman who saved me? The Empress nodded slowly. I wasn't an Empress then. I was a soldier. A wanderer. I rescued children like you because I knew what it felt like to lose everything. I gave you Cyrax and Emberwing because I wanted you to have protectors I never had. And then... She trailed off, her gaze distant. Then what? Ilara demanded, her voice rising. Why did you leave? Why did you abandon us? The Empress flinched as though struck. Because I was a coward. The words hung in the air, heavy and bitter. I was called back to the Dominion, the Empress said quietly. My people needed me. There was a war, a rebellion that threatened to tear our empire apart. I was the only one who could stop it. So I left. I told myself it was for the greater good, that I would return once the fighting was over. But the war lasted years, and when it finally ended, I had changed. I had become this. She gestured to herself, to the throne, to the empire around her. I convinced myself that you were better off without me, that you had moved on. I never imagined that I'd become your enemy. Alara finished, her voice sharp. The Empress met her gaze. That you'd become my mirror. Ilara's heart pounded. She wanted to scream, to rage, to demand answers for all the years of loneliness and pain. But beneath the anger, there was something else. A flicker of the child she had once been, the little girl who had clung to a stranger and believed she was safe. I don't know what you want me to say, Ilara said, her voice breaking. You saved my life. And then you left. And now you rule an empire that enslaves people just like I was enslaved. What am I supposed to do with that? The Empress stood slowly, wiping her tears away. When she looked at Ilara again, her expression was resolute. You're supposed to help me change it, she said. Ilara blinked. What? I've made mistakes, the Empress said. Terrible mistakes. I let my empire become something I never intended. I thought control was the only way to maintain peace. But I was wrong. And seeing you here, seeing what you've become. She paused, her voice thick with emotion. You're everything I hoped you'd be. Strong, brave, unwilling to compromise your principles. You're what I should have been. Ilara shook her head, stunned. You can't be serious. I am, the Empress said firmly. She turned to the sentinels. Release her, now. The guards hesitated, exchanging uncertain glances. That's an order, the Empress commanded. The shackles around Ilara's wrists disengaged with a hiss, falling to the floor. She rubbed her wrists, still processing what was happening. Behind her, the containment fields holding Cyrax and Emberwing flickered and died. Both dragons surged forward, flanking Ilara protectively. The Empress approached slowly, her hands raised in a gesture of peace. I know you have no reason to trust me, but I'm asking you to give me a chance. Help me dismantle the systems I built. Help me free the people I've wronged. Together we can. A deafening explosion rocked the throne room. The crystalline pillars shattered like glass. Shards rained down from above as the throne room walls buckled inward. Sentinels scattered, shouting orders that were drowned out by the roar of collapsing stone and metal. Ilara threw herself to the ground, covering her head as debris exploded around her. Cyrax spread his massive wings, creating a shield over her body while Emberwing released a burst of flame that vaporized falling rubble before it could crush them. The Empress remained standing, her armor flaring with protective energy as chunks of the ceiling bounced harmlessly off an invisible barrier surrounding her. Her eyes blazed with fury as she scanned the room, searching for the source of the attack. Through the smoke and dust, figures emerged. Dozens of them. They wore black combat armor marked with a crimson insignia, a broken chain wrapped around a clenched fist. Rebels, but not the kind Ilara had worked with before. These were something else entirely. Caltharian. A voice boomed through the chaos. A man stepped forward, his face hidden behind a featureless mask. Your reign ends today. The Empress's expression hardened. Commander Voss, I should have known you'd choose today of all days to make your move. Voss laughed, a harsh grating sound. You were distracted, weak. We've been watching you, Empress. Watching you hesitate. Watching you show mercy to a terrorist who destroyed our supply lines. That's when we knew. You've gone soft. Ilara pushed herself to her feet, Cyrax and Emberwing flanking her immediately. Her hand instinctively went to her hip, but her weapons had been confiscated when she was captured. She was unarmed, surrounded by enemies on all sides. This isn't a rebellion, the Empress said coldly. This is a coup. Call it whatever you want, Voss replied. The Dominion needs strong leadership. Leadership that doesn't flinch. Leadership that doesn't weep over scars and abandon children. His masked gaze shifted to Ilara. Kill the elf. And her beasts. Then we'll deal with the Empress. Rebels raised their weapons, plasma rifles charging with a high-pitched whine. Ilara's heart hammered against her ribs. She had survived impossible odds before, but never without her gear, never while protecting someone else, and never while her dragons were still recovering from the containment fields. But before the rebels could fire, the Empress moved. She was faster than light, faster than thought. One moment she stood near her throne, the next she was in front of Alara, her hand outstretched. Energy exploded from her palm, a shockwave of pure force that sent the nearest rebels flying backward like ragdolls. They crashed into walls, their armor cracking on impact. "You will not touch her," the Empress said, her voice resonating with power that made the air tremble. Voss snarled. "Open fire!" Plasma bolts filled the air, streaking toward Alara and the Empress in a deadly storm. But the Empress raised both hands, and suddenly a dome of shimmering light surrounded them, deflecting every shot. The bolts ricocheted harmlessly, striking rebels and pillars alike. "Alara," the Empress said without turning around, her voice strained from maintaining the shield. "I need you to trust me." Alara's mind raced. Trust her? The woman who had abandoned her? The ruler of an empire built on suffering? But as another volley of plasma fire hammered against the shield, as she saw the rebels closing in from all sides, Alara realized she didn't have a choice. "What do you need?" Alara asked. "Your dragons," the Empress said. "Can they breach the northern wall?" Alara glanced at the massive reinforced barrier on the far side of the throne room. It was designed to withstand orbital bombardment. But Cyrax and Emberwing were creatures of the void, born from the death of stars. If anything could break through, it was them. "They can," Alara said. "But it'll take time." "Then buy me that time," the Empress said. She dropped the shield. Immediately, plasma fire erupted around them. The Empress spun, her body moving with lethal grace. She caught a bolt in midair with her bare hand, the energy crackling between her fingers before she redirected it back at the shooter. The rebel's chestplate exploded, and he collapsed. Alara didn't hesitate. "Cyrax, Emberwing. The wall, now!" Both dragons roared in unison, launching themselves toward the northern barrier. Cyrax's scales began to glow, heat radiating from his body as he channeled the energy of distant stars. Emberwing opened her jaws, and a torrent of white-hot flame poured forth, so intense that rebels nearby screamed and stumbled back. Their armor melting, Alara ran toward a fallen sentinel, grabbing his plasma rifle before he could protest. She spun, fired 3 quick shots, and dropped 2 rebels who were trying to flank the Empress. Her training kicked in, muscle memory guiding her movements. Dodge, fire, reload, repeat. The Empress fought like a goddess of war. She moved through the rebels like a hurricane, every strike precise and devastating. She tore weapons from hands, shattered armor with her fists, and sent bodies flying with blasts of telekinetic force. But even she couldn't hold back an entire army alone. "Alara!" the Empress shouted. "How much longer?" Alara glanced at the wall. Cyrax and Emberwing were making progress, the reinforced metal glowing red-hot, beginning to warp and buckle. But it wasn't fast enough. 30 seconds! Alara yelled back. "We don't have 30 seconds." She was right. More rebels poured into the throne room from side passages, their numbers seemingly endless. Voss stood at the center of it all, coordinating the attack with cold efficiency. "Empress," Voss called out mockingly, "you can't win this. Surrender now, and I'll make your death quick." The Empress's eyes blazed. "I've faced down Star Eaters and reality benders. You think I'm afraid of a glorified janitor with delusions of grandeur?" Voss's mask tilted slightly, the only indication of his anger. "Kill them both. I want their heads mounted in the new throne room." The rebels surged forward as one, a tidal wave of armor and weapons. Alara fired until her rifle overheated, then grabbed another from a fallen guard. Beside her, the Empress unleashed torrents of energy, but even her vast power had limits. Cracks appeared in her armor, Blood trickled from her nose. She was burning through her reserves too quickly. And then, with a sound like thunder, the northern wall exploded outward. Cyrax and Emberwing roared triumphantly as debris rained down. Beyond the shattered barrier, Ilara could see the open sky, stars twinkling in the darkness of space. "Freedom, go!" The Empress shouted, shoving Ilara toward the opening. "Take your dragons and get out of here." Ilara stumbled, then caught herself. "What about you?" "I'll hold them off." "You'll die." The Empress smiled, and for a moment, she looked exactly like the woman who had saved a frightened child all those years ago. "Then I'll die protecting you. Like I should have done from the beginning." Ilara's throat tightened. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to escape while she still could. But as she looked at the Empress, bloodied and surrounded, she realized something. She wasn't that frightened child anymore. "Cyrax!" Ilara shouted. "Emberwing! Circle back. We're not leaving her." Both dragons obeyed instantly, wheeling around in the air and diving back into the throne room. Cyrax's tail lashed out, sweeping a dozen rebels off their feet. Emberwing released another blast of flame, creating a wall of fire between the Empress and Voss's forces. Ilara grabbed the Empress's arm. "You saved me once. Now it's my turn." The Empress stared at her, tears mixing with the blood on her face. "Ilara!" "We don't have time for this," Ilara said firmly. "Get on Cyrax now." For once, the Empress didn't argue. Together, they climbed onto Cyrax's back, Emberwing taking position beside them. With a powerful beat of his wings, Cyrax launched them through the shattered wall and into the open void of space behind them. Voss's furious screams echoed through the ruined throne room, but they were already gone, soaring into the stars as they flew. The Empress leaned against Ilara's shoulder, exhausted. "Where will we go?" she asked quietly. Ilara looked out at the endless expanse of space, at the millions of stars scattered like diamonds across black velvet. Somewhere out there were people who needed help, people who needed hope. "Wherever we're needed," Ilara said. "Together." The Empress smiled, and for the first time in decades, the weight of her crown felt just a little bit lighter. If you love this story of redemption, second chances, and unbreakable bonds, subscribe and follow for more epic HFY sci-fi adventures that'll keep you on the edge of your seat.